All right, strack in everyone because we are diving headfirst into a real head scratcher in AI this week. We've got two articles for this deep dive, and honestly, at first glance, it felt like they were from completely different worlds. But stick with us because by the end of this thing, you'll see how these threads connect in a way that's shaping the future of, well, pretty much everything. First up, we've got this piece from the Dutch IT channel about Intel and Amazon Web Services, AWS for those in the know, teaming up on a custom AI chip. Now, what's so strange about that, you ask? Well, it's like finding out your favorite bakery, the one famous for its sourdough, is suddenly partnering up with a flour mill they swore off years ago because they could make their own flour blend better and cheaper. Except in this scenario, the bakery is AWS, the flour is computer chips, and the flour mill is, you guessed it, Intel. And we're not talking about some small batch deal here, folks. This partnership is worth billions, which tells you just how high the stakes are.
Yeah, it's a fascinating turn of events, for sure. You see, AWS made a big splash a few years back when they moved away from Intel's chips and started developing their own, called Graviton. These chips were designed specifically for the massive data centers that power AWS, and it gave them a real edge in terms of both performance and cost.
So why would AWS go back to Intel? I mean, they were doing their own thing, and it seemed to be working pretty well for them.
That's the million-dollar question for sure, and the article hints at a few possible answers. Remember, developing and manufacturing chips is incredibly expensive and complex. By partnering with Intel, AWS can tap into their expertise in existing infrastructure, sharing the load, and potentially speeding up the development process.
Makes sense. And what's in it for Intel besides a giant pile of cash? The article mentions something about Intel trying to revive its foundry business.
Right, that was a key detail from the article. Think of a foundry as a specialized factory that builds chips. But get this, chips designed by other companies.
Yeah.
In simple terms, it's like Intel is saying, we're really good at making chips, even if they're not our designs. So if you need a custom chip, we're your guys.
So AWS gets a custom AI chip, potentially faster and cheaper, and Intel gets a lifeline for their foundry business.
Yeah.
Win-win, right? But you mentioned something earlier about a bigger picture.
Absolutely. This partnership speaks to a larger trend we're seeing across the tech world, the growing desire for customization and control over hardware. It's not just about performance anymore. It's about optimizing every single aspect of the technology for specific tasks, like running these complex AI algorithms, which can lead to massive efficiency gains and, of course, cost savings.
So it's kind of like instead of buying a ready-made suit, you're going to a tailor and getting one custom made to fit your exact measurements and style.
Exactly. And in the world of AI, where every bit of processing power and efficiency matters, having a chip that's tailor-made for your specific needs can make all the difference.
That level of customization is a game changer, especially when we're talking about AI. And speaking of, our next article takes us deep into the heart of Google Ads. Yeah, we're switching gears here a bit from hardware to software, but stick with us. This piece, written by SEA specialist Michelle, dives into all the latest AI-powered features Google's been rolling out for its ad platform. And let me tell you, Michelle is about as hyped about these updates as well as a kid in a candy store.
And with good reason. These aren't just like, small incremental tweaks. They're straight up game changers for marketers. Take, for example, conversational campaign building. This feature basically lets AI help you craft your campaigns. You feed it info about your product, your target audience, all that. And the AI generates suggestions for ad copy that sounds, honestly, surprisingly natural and engaging. It's almost like you've got a copywriter working alongside you.
Wow, like a super smart assistant that can handle all that creative heavy lifting.
Exactly. And it goes even further. Think AI-generated ad images. So instead of spending hours searching for the perfect stock photo or, hiring a designer, this feature lets you describe the image you want. And the AI, it just creates it for you. Yeah. It's still early days, obviously, but the potential here is huge, especially for, say, small businesses with maybe limited resources.
I bet. And speaking of making marketers' lives easier, Michelle also raves about all these new features for Performance Max campaigns. And for those who might not be familiar with all the ins and outs of Google Ads, can you give us a quick breakdown of what exactly Performance Max is and why these updates are such a big deal?
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, Performance Max campaigns are Google's way of trying to simplify ad campaigns across all their platforms. We're talking search, display, YouTube, you name it. You basically give Google your budget, your goals, and some creative assets. And their AI takes the wheel, figuring out the best placements, bidding strategies, all that, to get you the most bang for your buck.
Sounds great in theory, but Wasn't there like a bit of a black box issue with Performance Max before? It seemed like marketers felt they were giving Google too much control and couldn't quite tell what was working and what wasn't.
You hit the nail on the head there. A lot of marketers were hesitant because they lacked, well, transparency and control over how their campaigns were actually running. But these new features, they directly address those concerns.
So Michelle calls out the new brand control options and improved performance insights specifically. What exactly does that mean for marketers? Like they have more control over how their brand is being represented.
Exactly. You can now set specific guidelines to make sure your ads are, aligned with your brand identity. But I think the real game changer here is the enhanced performance insights. Google is finally lifting the curtain a bit, giving marketers a clearer view of what's happening behind the scenes so you can see which audiences are responding, which creative elements are performing well, and even get specific recommendations for optimization.
It really is like they're giving you a flashlight to figure out that black box, finally giving you the information you need so you can fine-tune those campaigns. But there's one more update Michelle mentions that seems to have sent the SEA world into a bit of a frenzy. Honestly, I get it. She's over the moon about the introduction of negative keywords for Performance Max campaigns. Can you explain why this is such a big deal for our listeners? I'll admit, this has me thinking back to the Wild West days of online advertising when managing keywords felt like a full-time job in itself.
Oh, I think any marketer who's spent any time at all wrestling with keyword lists knows that feeling. And you're right, this is huge. So to understand why, let's break it down a bit. Negative keywords are essentially a way of telling Google, hey, don't show my ad for these specific searches.
So let's say you're selling, I don't know, some really high-end running shoes. You might use cheap or discount as negative keywords so you don't waste your ad budget on customers who are just looking for a bargain.
Exactly. Before this update, Performance Max campaigns just didn't give you that level of control. Marketers were kind of at the mercy of Google's algorithms, crossing their fingers and hoping the AI picked up on all those nuances. But now, with negative keywords, they've got a seriously powerful tool to really refine their targeting and make sure their ads are actually reaching the right people.
It's like finally being able to prune those weeds in your garden so your prize-winning roses get all the attention.
I love that analogy. It really captures it perfectly. And it actually speaks to a broader point about how AI is changing the game in marketing. Because while these new features are awesome and super powerful, Michelle really emphasizes how important human oversight still is. We're not quite at a point where you can just feed your info into an AI and expect a perfectly optimized campaign.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between good old-fashioned human expertise and AI's capabilities.
Exactly. A true dynamic duo.
It all comes back to something we were discussing earlier, right? About Intel and AWS teaming up to build those custom AI chips.
Yep.
Like how that points toward a future where AI is more powerful and more accessible than ever.
Now you're getting it.
Those AI chips are the engine, and these AI-powered marketing tools are basically the sleek sports car they're powering, right? Giving even small businesses access to these incredible capabilities.
You got it. And that's exactly why it's so important for everyone, not just the techies or the marketing gurus of the world, to understand these trends. We're moving into a world where AI is more than a buzzword. It's like the driving force behind everything, from how we use our phones to how we do business.
It's definitely a lot to wrap your head around. But understanding how it all fits together, that's essential, and that's what we're here for. Equipping you with the knowledge and insights you need to navigate this exciting, ever-evolving world. And as we reach the end of this deep dive, we want to leave you with something to really ponder. If AI can now design those cool ad images, write compelling ad copy, and optimize entire campaigns, what does that mean for human creativity? And for human jobs? In a world increasingly driven by algorithms, it's a question without easy answers for sure, but definitely one worth exploring as we keep venturing further into this uncharted territory.